Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Does anyone have any good jokes before we get started? No? Okay. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let the meeting minutes show that we do have all 5 board members present and accounted for. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening, Ms. Scott?
Good evening, President Martinez. No, not at this time.
Okay. With that, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Thank you.
President Martinez, if I may I ask for a point of privilege?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce some people that we have here with us this evening. We have the governing board elections take place in November, and we had 2 seats that were open. Board Member Bartel's seat was open, and then Board Member Smith's seat was open. Board Member Bartels ran for her seat, and Board Member Smith has decided that she is going to stay home and take care of grandkids and her own family. And so we do thank her for her many years and decades of service. We'll do formal farewells at a later time. But the reason I want to announce that tonight is because both of our candidates ran unopposed, and so the county declared last week that we do not have to call for an election. So there will be no election. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our new board member that will come on in January, Mr. Hector Jaramillo. If you'll still stand, Hector. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to you joining the team, and it's going to be exciting. We welcome you to GSD. I talked briefly to you on the phone, and I understand that your sister's a fan of mine on Twitter, so that's a good thing. I probably need to get some tips from her, but she's a Key Club member, and we work directly with the Key Clubs through Kiwanis, so that's such a great organization for kids. But again, Hector, welcome to GSD, and welcome to our family and our community.
Okay, I believe there are some calls to the public this evening. And one moment here. The public is invited to address the board on any issue within its jurisdiction, subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Governing board members are not permitted to discuss or take legal action on matters raised during open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. However, the law permits board members to do the following at the conclusion of the open call to the public. A, respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board. B, ask staff to review the matter. Or C, ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. Those wishing to address the board should complete a call to the public form and submit it to the board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will be provided 3 minutes to address the board unless provided other direction by the board. At the outset of the speaker's remarks, the speaker should state their name, and the board requests that the speaker provide his or her address. You have several calls to the public this evening, so we'll start with Ms. Teresa Womack.
President Martinez, members of the board, and Superintendent Sagata Jones, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Teresa Womack. My address is 2353 West Cheyenne Road, Chandler, Arizona. And I am the Vils co-chair, Desert Spirit. I'm here today speaking on behalf of myself, This is my 7th year in the school district. I chose Glendale back in 2016 because I believe that the students in this district deserve a top quality education from top quality educators, and I wanted to be part of that group of educators. As many other educators have done in the past while working in Glendale, I have also had to take a second job to help make ends meet for my family, sometimes even working 7 days a week between 2 jobs and up to 80 plus hours a week with both jobs. Fast forward to April of 2022, when I had to make a life-changing decision and move to Chandler. Friends learned that I work in Glendale and live in Chandler, a 40-minute drive to work and up to an hour and a half drive home, asked me, why don't you just work in Chandler or Gilbert? These are friends that don't work in education, so they don't know about liquidated damages fees. I told them that not only would I have to pay a fee to move districts mid-year, that I still believe in my districts and the students and don't want to leave. They were shocked when I told them how much I would have to pay for breaking my contract, because at that time, it would have actually been 2 contracts, that current year and this current year, which would have totaled about $5,000, not something that I could afford to do. However, now that we are almost done with the first month of school, I am already starting to think about next school year. Due to teacher shortages, I am not only doing my job as a Vills coach, but I'm also teaching 6th grade ELA part of the day. I understand that we have this shortage of teachers in our district and state, and this is largely due to teacher salary. I did some research this past week and found out that if I chose to leave Glendale at the end of this year with my 7 years of experience and go work in Chandler, I will start at $55,515. And if I go to Gilbert, I will start at $55,000. This is a difference of over $11,000 more a year I could be making. Plus, think of all that gas I would be saving. Now, let's say I didn't sign my contract and decided to resign at the end of the year, but then said, I'm still going to go ahead and work in Glendale and reapply. With my years of experience, would bump me on the pay scale to making just over $1,400 more a year in the same district that I'm currently working in right now. I'm not sure how that's supposed to make sense, but it is reality. Like I stated before, I believe in this district and our students. I want to be able to stay in this district for many more years to come. However, if there's not going to be a significant pay increase for experienced teachers, I will consider leaving at the end of my contract. Increasing the current teacher pay to be more competitive will not only help to retain teachers we currently have, but will also help to get more teachers to want to apply and come work in Glendale. We all know that the teachers didn't want to get into teaching for the pay. However, we still need to survive, and it would be great to not have to work the second job anymore. I urge the board to make a decision to increase teacher salaries, to look at our salary schedule and compensate the teachers and staff in our district better so that we won't lose any more staff to other districts, and to entice more educators to come for work for Glendale. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, the next call to the public is from Ms. Jessica Peck.
While I come up, can you remind me the bell is a warning bell? It's like a time, I know. The bell goes off at.
So there is a 3-minute limit?
Yes, I know that. But when is the bell the 3 minutes?
I believe you hit it at 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I just need that clarification. Good evening, Superintendent Sagata Jones and board members. I'm Jessica Peck. I'm a teacher in Glendale for 13 years, the member of the Meet and Confer Committee for 4 years, and now I serve as GEA Vice President. I am also the mother of a Glendale student and hopefully another one next year. At Meet and Confer, we've discussed pay compression for 4 years, and it's a compelling concern for many of our staff. During the last 3 years, longevity pay was the #1 compensation concern after base salary, which shows us that our staff deeply cares about being compensated for their years of service. A full 25% of our staff selected that for 3 years in a row. Furthermore, in 2019, this board held a special study session proposing to address compression by 2020. Unfortunately, that didn't happen due to a multitude of factors like a pandemic. But now the time has come. Pay compression hurts morale because it makes loyal staff feel undervalued. When they see no realistic path to increased compensation, they will look elsewhere for employment. Part of the reason why we have a staffing crisis is we have a retention crisis. Instead of principals spending their summers planning new academic programs and supports, they have to spend so much time in interviews, worrying about how to staff classrooms, cafeterias, and front offices. Our HR department has to spend so much time at recruitment fairs instead of focusing fully on retention. Pay compression negatively impacts all corners of our district, both certified and classified alike. Pay compression also results in veteran teachers leaving our district. The state average for teacher experience is 11 to 12 years, but in our district, it's only 8 to 9. That's been the case for 3 years. Furthermore, the state percentage of novice teachers is 17 to 19%, but in our district, it is 30 to 37% for the past 3 years. This data shows that we can grow and improve in hiring and keeping experienced teachers, which is partially due to the lack of competitive pay for experienced teachers. Sadly, this impacts the academic achievements of our students, but not only that, it impacts their morale and their connectedness to lose the teachers and the staff that they build relationships with every year. Lastly, we know that student enrollment is a concern. However, both Cartwright and Isaac lost 17% of their students, but they both got a 5% raise. Dysart lost 8% of their students, yet they gave a 4% certified raise, a 13% ESP raise, and the increased stipends. Gilbert lost 6% of their students and yet gave certified staff a raise of $4,500 and ESPs an hourly raise of $2. Kyrene lost 5% of their students and yet gave a 7% raise. So GEA believes that we can do decompression adjustments, which you'll discuss tonight, and raises even in an atmosphere of declining student enrollment. I know that we all have a shared goal of honoring and keeping our GESD employees. Thank you for your time and service.
Okay, thank you. The next call to public, Miss Elizabeth, and I'm going to say Seifter?
Good evening, Board President, members of the Board, and Superintendent Sagata Jones. My name is Elizabeth Seifter, and I have been a social studies teacher in the district for 8 years. I am also the elected president of the Glendale Education Association. Today, I am speaking to show support for a more equitable liquidated damages policy. First, I would like to remind the Board of how early we are asked to sign our contracts. As mentioned at a previous meeting, this year, certified staff were sent their contracts on January 28th, and most were asked to sign by February 23rd. Not only do these contracts not include school sites, grade levels, or content areas, but also our staff members are asked to sign their contract before potential raises are approved. In other words, people are signing while in the dark about their future salary. This brings a lot of stress and uncertainty about the future of our employees. It also brings resentment when we hear of raises in other districts while kept in the dark about any future plans for raises in our salaries. Furthermore, it is the opinion of GEA that the liquidated damages policy is a punitive measure that brings no value to Glendale. Not only does it bring no value, but I would argue that it is a detriment to our district. I want to remind you of the 2 women who spoke a few months ago, requesting their liquidated damages to be waived. The first woman was resigning for the 2022-23 school year before the 21-22 school year had even ended. The second woman is moving to Tucson due to her partner getting his dream job, which would also help her young family financially. These 2 did not get happy send-offs, but instead lost $2,500 of their income. Are these women likely to recommend GESD as a place for employment? I would surely think not. In a time that we are seeing record numbers of teacher vacancies, do we not want the best PR possible? Liquidated damages are not going to stop someone from leaving, but it surely might stop someone from recommending GESD in the future. With all this said, I have faith that the governing board and district can create a more fair policy for our employees. First, we recommend the inclusion of more extenuating circumstances such as recent birth of a child, job promotion within a household, and relocation. Next, there needs to be clarification to the hiring of a qualified replacement. Finally, we would recommend a sliding scale based on the date of resignation and the reduction of the fee. The fee currently is more than a month of most teachers' net salary. And our contract language, based on information from our districts, our liquidated damages fine is one of the highest in our area. I'm sure this is not one of the areas that GESD is seeking to be number 1 on. I appreciate the governing board and Superintendent Sagata Jones for taking the time to review and hopefully revise this policy. It is the goal of the Glendale Education Association to make GESD one of the best districts to work for, and we appreciate the ability to collaborate with the district, and we look forward to more opportunities in the future. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Last call to the public from Ms. Sharon Flores.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having these meetings for parents to be involved, to be able to address their concerns at schools and just with everything. Thank you. So I'm here tonight, stepping out of my comfort zone. It's a little overwhelming for me, but I'm here to advocate for my 6-year-old daughter who cannot do it for herself. The first concern that I have is, what are the policies that are set in place when a child is threatened or harassed by another student in their class? What are the steps that are being taken, and what are the steps that we can improve this process? 1, so it's easier. 2, so the victim in this doesn't feel the wronged person ashamed or scared to even go back to school. So early Monday, my daughter was, this is an ongoing issue. She keeps being harassed and assaulted, bullied, I guess you can say, by another student. This is ongoing from last year. We allowed the school to step in and take, action, and we trust that they would handle it in an appropriate manner. Here we come to this year, my daughter and this other child are in the same class, and he's still following her at recess, harassing her. She does try to let the lunch aides know that this is what's going on, and they simply tell her to go and play. This kid is kicking her. On Monday, we got a voicemail at a little after 4, a little after school ended, saying that my daughter was threatened by another student, that he was going to bring a gun to school and shoot her in the head. So, yes, I said in the head. He was going to bring a gun and shoot her. So I tried to call the school back immediately, of course, and, the office is already closed because it's, by the time I get this voicemail, it's 4:30, and of course they close at 4:30. I emailed the vice principal. I don't get a response. I email back the teacher. I don't get a response, and I understand everyone is very busy. But for me, me and my husband are worried the whole night. It's on our mind. Like, what is my daughter, what is going through her mind? How do I reach out to her? How do I get information how she feels, right? Because at this point she's scared, but she thinks she has to go back to school the next day. So first thing, Tuesday morning, me and my husband go. We take the day off of work. We sit there and wait for almost an hour to speak to somebody. While the principal, vice principal, they're walking right past us. They see us waiting there. No, hi, how are you guys? Do you need some help? Or no address, nothing. Okay, so just the way it was handled, we finally spoke to the vice principal. She basically said that there's not much that she can do for the kid. Only if he does it again, that he'll be in trouble. And I tried to explain to her that he's been doing this since last year. So fast forward through the week, my daughter has already missed this. Tomorrow will be her 4th day. We did get an order of protection. We did file a police report. Still to this day, we have no update. We didn't even get a call back. I had to reach out to the district for the principal to call me, which he did call me about an hour ago. So I just want to know how we can change that going forward. What do we do in this situation? Does my daughter stay out of school for another week until they figure out where to put her? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Can we just make sure as the board that we get a follow-up on that?
Yes, Board Member Smith. Yeah.
Okay, as we have to move on to the rest of the agenda, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items that any board members would like to have pulled for discussion? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll move to adopt the consent agenda.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Thank you. Moving on to reports and information items. Ms. Sagata Jones.
Yes, good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Debbie Valdez, and she'll give her presentation, as you've seen before, on liquidated damages, policies, and procedures. I want to remind you that we do have legal counsel here. Should there need to be any questions answered, if we believe that we need to go into executive session, legal counsel will advise us when to do so.
Good evening, Mr. President, Superintendent Sagata Jones, members of the board. This is the presentation that we did before on liquidated damages. There's been no changes to the policies or the practices of liquidated damages. I'll just go through it quickly since you've already seen it. We went over the policy that discusses a teacher who resigns and, the Arizona statutes. We have the liquidated damages fee language. We have the reasons that the fee gets waived: military orders, major medical conditions, employees offered a promotion within the field of education, or the employee remains until we find a replacement. The contract language, the kind of a look at liquidated damages over the last 4 years, and just some of the practices were shared that are within Arizona. And then I have just to follow up on some other information, and I think that was the end of it that we went through. Yes. So just a couple of things regarding liquidated damages and just where they get, we know the main reason the biggest concern is anytime we have a teacher quit once the school year is started, or we've already filled positions for the next year, we've missed out on some potential candidates because we thought teachers were returning. The number one concern is our kiddos, right? Especially when people just leave mid-year. Who pays the price? Our kiddos pay the ultimate price, and the attachments they make. So we know we have that for those reasons. We also know the training that gets involved. We have induction week, 2 new teachers. We have all their professional development. So again, that walks right out the door with them as well. We also know you've heard it tonight, just the shortage. So now are we dividing the kiddos up? Are the classes even larger now? And yes, they get teacher for teacher because we cannot find a substitute. But again, it's difficult on the classroom teacher, and again, it's difficult on our kiddos with that. That liquidated damages is part of our contract language, which is not a meet, confer, negotiated item. Our contracts are our contracts. The same with, at least since I've been here, the liquidated damages is not a part of negotiations. It's just in our contract language. It does make people think twice. It definitely does. There are people that have been willing to wait to find a replacement on that one, knowing that they would have to pay the fee. We know we just need to keep our teachers as much as we can for our kiddos. I had shared, I believe, in a board update, but reaching out, it was 25 districts that shared information with me. And there's 5 districts of the 25 that shared that do not charge a fee. One of them is actually gathering information for review to take to the board to actually start to impose liquidated damages. Another one is just, they don't do liquidated damages, but they do a statement of charges. They do not accept the resignation, and they take it to their board as a statement of charges for termination. And then the other 3 districts do not have liquidated damages. Of the 25 districts, 7 of those districts do have the tiered fee in place. And of the 25 districts, 14 of them do have a fee that ranges from $2,000 to $3,000 is the liquidated damages fee. It could be, some of it is tiered, but the max, the ones that shared with me, is a $3,000 liquidated damages fee. But like I said, 14 of them are in that range of $2,000 to $3,000 on that one. Also was speaking with the investigative unit for the Department of Ed. through the state board, just to get more information, like, what happens when a certificate is, reported, and they just said it's definitely every case is looked at individually on that one, and there's a range of recommendations that move forward, but and since all decisions go through the PPAC, which is that Professional Practices Advisory Committee, and then their recommendation onto approval for the state board, that they just look at it differently. They also shared, then I also spoke with the Assistant Attorney General, Kathleen. It's now Brandingham, it was Harrington. And she just said there's no hard, fast policy on that when teachers are breaking their contracts. They look at the facts. Sometimes nothing happens. If they've had to pay a fee, they feel like that's enough of discipline imposed on them for breaking a signed contract. Sometimes they feel, depending what it was that I just dropped my keys and walked out. They just said it's all really fact specific. Sometimes it could be mild discipline, like a letter of censure. So if they go to another district and, they're doing it again, they have that on their record that they seem to be going to district now and just quitting mid-year, so they also do that. But, she said they look at, did they wait for someone to, to be found, and they just couldn't wait any longer. So she just said all of that comes into play with that when making those. Also, when talking to other districts, lots of us, or not most of us, have some of the same things: military leave, medical, promotion within the field of education. Do we wait? The one thing there was that a lot of the districts had, and their reasons to waive the fee, was moving out of state. Lots of them do have that as part of it, which we do not, but I wanted to share that I also learned that as well. And just kind of big picture of everything right now and where we are, and I know you already know our need for teachers and why we really need to keep them, if at all possible, here, and have them maybe think twice about leaving us mid-year. As we currently right now have 25 vacancies, classroom vacancies, teacher vacancies, 2.5 related arts, and 10 or 12 special ed vacancies. So we definitely, want to retain the people and have them think twice, if at all possible, before leaving. We know there's situations, and lots of times this is a situation that's maybe not a reason that is one of our waiving for the fee. I can tell you, we definitely follow our policy. Do not get me wrong. We are HR. We know that's what we are here for. We follow policy. But we also know we try to help that employee. Like, if I can help you find a reason that I can get it so I can waive your fee, I will sit and give you strategies over the phone how to do it. Like, there are ways, when there's that need and they call us, we definitely try to do that, because sometimes it's like, oh gosh, I got to help you with this. Not because I want to lose you, but it's truly a reason that it's not one of ours, but gosh, if you get me a note for this. And, people, if they bring a note or get the documentation, we'll definitely try to work with them around that, on that one. So that's kind of the newest information I had to share regarding liquidated damages.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of good information there, and I know we'll have some questions and clarifications, but we just want to clarify that the liquidated damages, the fee applies to all employees or all contracted employees, not just the teachers, correct? Okay. All right, any questions or comments?
I just would like to add to that. I know our children are definitely the ones that pay the ultimate price, but also the other teachers do too. When a teacher leaves her position or his position in the middle of the year, it puts not only a strain on the children and the administrators, but the other teachers. They're the ones that have to pick up the pieces. They're the ones that have to try and get those kiddos in another class, and then of course the special area teachers are ending up with 41 students, and it just puts a huge wrench in the whole system. And I know, like, even now, what are we in our third week? That's going on right now. There are all of a sudden empty classrooms where last week it was full. And so say just for instance, if it's a fifth grade or a third grade, and then the rest of the team has to pick up those pieces and cover for that teacher that left. And that is a real hardship, because I've been there. You know, I was a music teacher for, a long time. I won't say how long. And I ended up having to go through that, where a teacher left, and then all of a sudden I have all these kids, and I had the kids that I had last week, I don't have this week anymore, and I got new ones in. And it's really difficult. So, we have to keep that in mind as well. And I know that $2,500 is a lot of money, but it's meant to be a lot of money. It's meant to deter someone from, thinking about leaving in the middle of the year. And there are circumstances that, you just can't help, that you need to get out of your contract. And I know Mrs. Valadez to be an extremely fair person. And I know when she says that she will go out of her way to find a reason for, you to not have to pay that $2,500, that's exactly what she says that she's going to do. So, I'm not only supporting our students in this, but I'm supporting the teachers as well, the other teachers that have to pick up the pieces.
So I think we're all kind of aware that I'm not a fan of the liquidated damages policy. And probably one of the bigger reasons is, I know we kind of went through the list of these are the ways that you can break a contract without incurring a fee. I guarantee you I can question every single person in the audience and every single person up on this board today. What's a good reason? And then down the line we will find another reason that we think should be applied. They're like, oh, we missed that. Because if you make a hard and fast list and require us to stick by that hard and fast list of what's a legitimate reason, we're going to find reasons that are like, when you say that, I wish, you're talking to somebody and it's like, I wish we could find a reason that fits in this little category. That already shows that you empathize with this person. I wish there was a way I didn't have to charge you this, but this policy is going to make me do it anyway. That's not a position that I definitely want to be in. As a manager of my job, I don't want to put myself in a position, and it's not a position I want to put anyone else in. If they're, as an HR person, you work with people all the time, and your ability to empathize with people you deal with is an asset to that sort of job and that sort of position. And being hamstrung and tied down by the letter of the law and the policy for certain things does not sit well with me. And then some of the other things we talked, there's a wide range of different policies, and thank you for doing all the legwork on that and getting a good sample of what other districts are doing. The ability to be more flexible is something that I would certainly like to see, to discuss it. Obviously, we can't really do it today, but to discuss at a later time if the board members want to bring this policy up again. I just want to be a flexible employee, because I don't think, and I'll be honest, this is a gut feeling, and from what I've seen, liquidated damages is not going to force anyone to stay. If you don't like your job, and they say it's like you don't quit your job, you quit your employer or you quit your manager, right? If they're in a situation that don't like it, the only thing that's holding them back is their ability to find another job while they're still doing a day job for you. And as a person that has personally done that before, and as a person who has quit a job without a job already, I could tell you that there are situations that are, whether it's you don't like the environment you're in, or you find out that this is not for you, or you came in, it's like, I can't teach fifth grade. There's a whole bunch of things, but there's a reason for that, and I want to make sure that when liquidated damages are levied against somebody, I have absolutely no problems. Hey, school started. You have a class. You have a roster. You have done lesson plans already. Guess what? It's $3,000 now. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But if you get towards the end of the year and it's like, I just can't do this anymore, but I already signed my contract, then I think we should have the ability to be a little more humane with our levying of those fees.
Mr. President, thank you. Just for clarification, or so we understand, liquidated damages is not a policy, it's a contractual agreement. Okay, so we don't have policy on it. It's contractual. It's in their contract. It's in our contracts. And then, as Ms. Valadez says, those are the criteria that are listed. Again, is just what we use as a district. But I just want to make sure we understand it's not policy. It's in our contracts.
Ms. Valadez, thank you for discussing the fact that we need to protect our classrooms and our children. It's difficult to get classrooms staffed at this point. I'm not a big fan of liquidated damages either, and I would prefer that they not seem punitive. And I did a little research on my own, and in my research that I did, I found one school district that does not have a liquidated damages fee, however, does report to the Department of Education. And I asked why, and they said so they can do the tracking, and that's pretty much what you were saying. They can track to see if this is a pattern. So I did find that. I found 2 districts that used to have a higher liquidated damages fee, and within the last 4 years, they've both brought it down. One district brought it down to $1,500 for of a fee for the teachers and $2,000 for their administration. And prior liquidated damages was $3,000. And during COVID, that was paused. And I don't know, I did not ask when that was started again, but that was something I did find interesting. In the other district that also dropped theirs, they dropped theirs down to $1,000 as a punitive, a liquidated damage, and they have the same exceptions we do. I do show that one district said they do have liquidated damages, they do not enforce them or impose them, and it's a rare instance when they do. One district also has, and these are all neighboring districts, they're not far. One district has $2,500 and it's discretionary, and that's all I was told. And another one told me theirs is also $2,500, it's discretionary, and I don't know how this works, I wasn't able to get this information, but it's prorated depending on how long it's been since the contract was signed. So I'm seeing that things are all over the place, and as you said, it's not a hard, fast, this number, this place. So I did my research, and I do have a couple questions. So moving out of the state is one acceptable reason to waive damages, am I correct?
Not in our list.
Not on ours.
Not moving out of state?
I mean, Board Member Pimentel, no, not on ours.
Okay. And is there a reason that moving out of state isn't acceptable? And so I was assuming the answer was going to be yes. And if moving out of state is not acceptable, then I guess the rest of my question is void, because I said is moving out of county. So if for example, they're moving from here to Yuma, and I was wondering, is it a miles? Has that ever been discussed since you've been here?
No, that's not one of our reasons. That's just for the military, promotion within the field, medical, waiting for an acceptable, waiting for a replacement.
Okay. And have we ever considered being more discretionary and reducing the amount on any particular case that you can think of?
I have not, because like I said, with HR, Board Member Pimentel, with HR, I do really follow our policies and practices. So if the $2,500 is what's in our contracts, it's not one of the reasons we waive the fee. The fee will be charged.
And this is not negotiated, am I correct?
Correct.
Are there any other questions?
Actually, I have, so if somebody, they're not sure what they want to do yet. How do you guys have that conversation with somebody, whether or not they sign their contract? Because we do it so early. That way they know there is an option. But the caveat is you may lose the location and the classroom that you have. But if you decided not to come back and decided to start after the school year, you'd be in the same boat as an employee coming back. So what kind of conversation, I mean, is that something that is given to all the employees so they understand If you choose not to sign your contract, we'll accept it as you're not coming back. However, if you do decide to sign it later, this is the reality you may be facing.
Yes, we don't like go out and have conversations, but the conversations, you know, when we give out the intents to return, that goes in January. And if they already know they're not coming back, we're like, you know, tell us now for staffing, you know, that way we know when we're staffing. And then their insurance also gets carried through June 30th. So we have that chunk. Then at the end of January, throughout February is when contracts go out. I know, you know, and the principals really have those conversations because they know they have teachers that are like, oh, gosh, I might be going here. And I know for a fact, just from talking to them, that the conversation is, well, you know, if you know, don't sign your contract then, and if it changes or you change your mind, rescind your resignation. And you see that lots of times on the agendas, rescind resignation, rescind resignation. And with such a teacher shortage, they're going to end up, if they rescind, there's going to be a position for them in Glendale. We cannot say it'll be at their same school or at their same grade, but we also all know the reality we're facing right now, that, you know, if that's what happens, then it doesn't work out what they were planning, or it doesn't really work, or they meet, whatever the case may be, they tell them to rescind they can rescind their resignation. So those conversations, I know just because I've talked to the principals, that those happen.
And that would be a way to protect them from that.
Correct.
And then you commented about there are some districts that do a tiered. What, did you get information on what that looks like?
Yes. So I have here, so of the 25 districts that I got information from, so one district is, when it's tiered, it's really dates, right? Between this time and this time, it's a lower tier, closer to like if you signed it in February, but you break it in April, it's a lower amount. And then it's like May to June, it's a different amount. And then after July, it's the higher amount. And really, if it's the other tier, so there's been the date tiers, but there's also, if it's less than 30 days, or if it's if that they haven't filled their contract, or if it's after 60 days is another tiered one. But of the 1, 2, 3, I'm just looking. Another one's just, it didn't give me the dates, it's just tiered. I don't know if they do it by number of days you've been in your contract, or if they do it by the timeline, you know, a month-to-month basis. But most of them are between, like, if it's prior to May 30th, it's this amount. If it's during the summer, it's this amount. And if it's after July 1, it's the higher amount. That's what of the ones that gave me information, that's what their tiers look like.
Would it be appropriate to ask our attorney what she's seen in different contracts?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, members of the governing board, this is Jennifer McLennan from Gus Rosenfeld. Ms. Valadez's data and the data that Ms. Pimentel has pulled is about what I've seen as well. I've seen liquidated damages as low as $1,000, as high as $3,500. Most of my clients do have liquidated damages clauses in their contracts, like Glendale Elementary does, to cover the issues that were discussed earlier tonight. It is, well, it certainly is a impediment to allowing someone to resign. That's the point. It is not a penalty under the law. A liquidated damages clause is meant to be a predetermined amount that a party who breaches the contract has to pay. So that's how it exists legally. And Ms. Sagata-Jones was correct that this is something that's within your contract documents as they exist today. So I applaud the board for having an open discussion about this issue. I know that the issues are real in terms of people's lives and the empathy that you feel for them when they need to move on from their employment. But the reasons for having them, and the reasons that most of my clients do have them, is to try to stem the tide. And then the other point I'd like to make, if you would indulge me, I heard some discussion of discretionary implementation of waiving a liquidated damages, and I would caution against that because that raises the issue of doing it for one when you don't do it for another, and that in an employment law context always creates risk. Thank you.
My question, while you're up there, so obviously this is a contract thing, and so I'm sitting here and I'm listening to, like Ms. Wilson saying, one thing, I'm listening to, Mr. Martinez, saying another, but the contracts are going to come back to us as a board, and we're going to have to, vote or approve of these, contracts in the future, and where, as the board, what's the right way to actually, discuss this a little bit more so that, we don't want to have contracts that are just not approved and then wait 3 months, while we, fight it out, whatever. So what would be the best way to, proceed? Because, I'm kind of feeling that there's, we're not all, agreeing here.
Ms. Smith, if I may, I think what we can do in hearing that is, yes, it's in the contract for this year. Legal counsel can guide us, but I know that Jennifer's going to tell us, because it's in the contract this year, it's probably in our best interest to leave it in the contract unless we have to renegotiate and redo all contracts. So what I would ask the board to do is, you've heard presentations of the data. We know that's in the contract this year. If we can have Ms. Valadez and her team look at a committee in which they can address some of the concerns that have been brought up. There's been a tiered approach brought up. They can look at that, or if there's other items on there that, for example, some of the waivers and some that one that we don't have, that is one that I know we deal with, and it's a hard one, is when the person is moving out of state, or let's say a spouse or whatever it may be, has a promotion out of state, and they leave the position, then there's nothing in there for us that can allow us to waive that fee. So that's a real hard one, and that does happen. That you choose a different career, or your spouse or yourself have a promotion and you're leaving the state. That's not in there for that in our contract, so or in our reasons for waivers. So we can look at that, bring that back to you, have that discussion again, and then so when you get ready to approve contracts, you can make that decision at that time. Also, as we've heard from legal counsel, Ms. Valadez, there are districts currently moving that have not done it, and I believe that district is Deer Valley. They're looking at currently imposing that, and then there's districts that have done the tier. Some that have done the tier also are considering going back to not doing it. Some districts that don't have tier are considering moving to a tier approach as well. So we're happy to bring some different recommendations back to you so that you're well prepared to make those adjustments or ask for adjustments to be made during the next contract year.
I guess, from listening to our attorney, saying that, waiving of fees, may be something that we should, get some more legal counsel on.
I'd be happy to provide that. So it just needs to have, you need to be applying the same criteria to everyone, and that would be my point, which you do currently.
So it's really to keep us from making exceptions, that we don't make one exception for somebody, not the other person, which has not been the practice.
Okay. That makes sense. So is the entirety of the liquidated damages information, that's all in the contract? There's nothing in there that says C policy, GC, QC, or anything like that? It's just the meat and bones of it are built within the contract language, correct?
Correct, Mr. Martinez.
So any adjustment needs to be done for that, and we start prepping contracts, January?
Typically, your district sends them over to me in January to review for legal updates.
So prior to that, we can give you information within the next couple of months, and just give you information on what could be some possible changes, and then we can have that discussion again with legal counsel.
I'm just going to let you know, my opinion on this is, I'm leaning more with Ms. Wilson, and the reason is that, I thought about, before I came here today, I'm like, let me think about some contracts, that I've seen, that haven't dealt, with the schools, and I think, when I thought about it, I'm like, my grandfather used to have contracts with the military, and guess what? If they broke their contract, there was a fee, just like there is here. And so, I definitely think, that when you sign a contract, that it is important that you keep it, if, that's just where I'm at with it.
I absolutely get what you're saying, but on the flip side of it, you're asking someone to sign a contract 8 months before they start that job, and they're not sure where they are, and they're not exactly sure sometimes where they're going to be doing it and what they're doing while within that contract. And it used to all be that way. Contract used to come out like late February, March. There used to be a little more time, but I think having a deeper discussion, kind of talking about that, I think would not only benefit our understanding, but put us in a position to better be able to handle these situations in the future. Next year, this ship has already sailed for this year. I don't think anyone has in mind we're going to change it for this year, but for next year, I'd certainly like to take a deeper look at that and maybe have our legal counsel come back and keep us from shooting ourselves in the foot. That would be very much appreciated.
So why don't we agree to come back, let's say November? At that time, we also can bring to you a timeline for contracts. I just want to go back to some of the history with contracts. We did used to do contracts in February and March, and then at that time, we were criticized because other districts were giving contracts out, and we didn't give our contracts out. I remember sitting down there hearing that as well. So we can look at timelines. We're happy to do that. And we can also present to you some of those other options. And then if we can do that by November, everybody's aware, and they can make decisions at that time when contracts come out, whether we keep the contract date in January or February or March, whatever that turns out to be. But we can bring you that information. We also can give you information when other districts release contracts as well.
I do have one question, though. The $2,500 that is collected, where does that money go?
Mr. Berrigan, you want to say the exact fund? Go ahead.
Mr. President, members of the board, I don't recall the exact funding, but it is required by the USFR, which obviously is the accounting manual for school districts, to be placed in a specific fund, and I believe it's capital related, in where the monies have to be deposited.
So when we did, and when you looked at the data, remember 52% of our liquidated damages were waived.
Okay. So
The other question related to where that money gets deposited would be, how do we then turn around and use it? Is it?
Mr. President, members of the board, the USFR gives us guidance on how those monies can be used for. So those monies, if I remember correctly, those monies can be used for capital-related items. I'm happy to provide that information to you, specifically, if not in November, sooner, so that you can actually understand kind of what the USFR says, how those monies can be used. We're happy to provide that to you.
So you're talking like maybe soft capital?
Mr. President, members of the board, I don't believe that it distinguishes between soft or what was, soft capital. It just says capital items. But again, we're happy to provide you with that information. I believe at one of the previous discussions, we did have that information available to you, but we're happy to provide that to you again.
Well, I know me personally, because, we do try to get our contracts out just so we can see where we're going to land for the following year. If we were to, have that tiered, at least for that first couple months of that duration of that contract being signed, that is an option I would be willing to consider because we do it so early. But that being said, you're dinged if you do and you're dinged if you don't. I'm cleaning my language up. Because no matter what, somebody's always going to find, well, somebody got it out early and we couldn't figure out what we want to do, or we got it out late and they already did this. I mean, we're just in a no-win situation when it comes to our contracts and when they go out.
Thank you. We will provide the board with that information. We're happy to come back and have a conversation before contracts come out. I think that's fair to our employees, and we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good discussion. Moving on in the agenda, the next in reports and informational items, the salary decompression study update. Ms. Segata-Jones.
Yes, at this time I turn over to Ms. Valadez, and she will do introductions, and she and Mr. Berrigan, and then our presenter.
Good evening again, Mr. President, Superintendent Segata-Jones, members of the board. It is my pleasure to introduce Jeremy Calles with True Professionals. Is that the correct name now? Jeremy is here to share information like what was shared even this evening. Is we know how compressed our salary schedule has gotten, definitely the classified one with minimum wage. We know also how salaries, where our salaries are compared to other districts, where our teachers, admin classified salaries are compared to other districts. We know this conversation has been going on since I started here, and we had a company, and that I think it was even started before I got here, and then the company wasn't. It's like, okay, where's our info? Where's our information? And now, ta-da, we have information, and that's thanks to Jeremy. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to share the information with us.
Thank you, Debbie. Superintendent, Mr. President, members of the board, I'm going to go over your salary study along with some recommendations. First, we've been doing some work now for several months. We had an initial assessment. I'm going to give a recap of what was in the initial assessment. And then I'm going to go into defining the problem, what's causing the compression, talk about who else has this same problem, who is also dealing with compression right now in their salary schedules, how are they handling it, and then what is the plan for the district in terms of moving forward with decompressing the salary schedules. So just looking at the scope and method, 94 positions were analyzed. They were verified for level of responsibility to make sure it's synced up with the other districts. There was 8 peer districts, 69 industry postings, so it was just using postings that were on Indeed, that were comparable to the positions, and then everything was put into a dashboard to use for easy comparisons. So looking at your peer districts, you have Alhambra, Cartwright, Kyrene, Litchfield, Pendergast, Tempe, Washington, and Yuma. There are some examples right there of industry, but again, it was just pulling like positions that happened to be posted on Indeed at the time that the data was being pulled. Some of the initial findings were that the additional compensation for education is actually comparable to the peer group. The additional compensation for experience expressed as a percentage of the base is comparable, but the starting base ranks are at the bottom of the peer group. And that's in common for all 3 of your employee groups, that the starting base is at the bottom, which is causing some of the issue. Compression is across all the employee groups, and so while it's most visible within your support staff, you're actually experiencing compression across all 3 employee groups right now. So I just want to define the problem and talk about how the district got here. So if we go back to 2016, minimum wage in Arizona was $8.05. At that point in time, Proposition 206 was passed, and we had increases that were phasing in. Those increases went to $10, $10.50, $11, $12, $12.15, $12.80, and if the August CPI holds up at the same level as the July CPI, which we'll know here in a couple weeks, at the 8.5% mark, then what you're looking at coming January 1st is that minimum wage is going to move to $13.90. When you look at that increase as a percentage, it's 72.7% that minimum wage has increased since 2016. So a portion of your employees have to be guaranteed those increases. That's 72.7% increase over that period of time. When you look at what's happened with the district's funding coming in to offset those increases and the cost of those increases, you see the changes in the base level there in the right-hand columns, and you see that the base level, starting with the very first jump in 2017, the base level moved 1% when you saw a 24% jump in minimum wage. So right off the bat, everybody was behind on trying to keep up with what was being caused by Proposition 206. That didn't get much better. You have 1 year, 2021, where it got slightly improved when it went from a 33.8% differential to a 31.3. But then again, you see in 22 and 23, it's only getting worse. And the difference between the funding coming in and the amount that needed to go out for minimum wage increases being differentiated by 41.7%. Now, a couple things to note. One, not all of your employees had to be guaranteed the 72.7%. However, when you're forced to give that large of an increase to one group of employees, you now then can't give the same level of increase to everyone else. It's taken away from some of your resources, especially when you have 31% coming in and 72% that has to be guaranteed to a certain portion of your population. Also, those differentials, that's based on a district with stable enrollment. The district has not had stable enrollment. The district has also been facing enrollment declines during the same period of time. So just to illustrate, and this is purely for illustrative purposes, this is not the district's salary schedule, although I am going to show the district's placement schedule here shortly. Let's say that you had a salary schedule with grades 1 through 10 back in 2016, and minimum wage was at $805, so you started the base of your salary schedule at $805. Moving across, you get 2% for each year of experience, and moving down, you get 5% for each increase in responsibility for the grades. This is what that salary schedule would look like, cascading out from $8.05 out to $14.05 on the placement. The moment minimum wage goes into effect, this is what 2017 would look like on that salary schedule without sufficient funds to move everyone up by a like amount. The jump to $10 would consume half of that salary schedule. There's $10.50 in 2018, $11 in 2019, $12 in 2020, $12.15 for 2021, $12.80 for 2022, and $13.90 in 2023. Very quickly, the entire schedule could just be consumed by minimum wage, meaning that you would have all this compression of positions of multiple levels of responsibility, multiple ranging years of experience, all getting placed in at the same amount. Now, as I said, that was for illustrative purposes. This is where your salary schedule is at right now. And you can see that the $12.80 has already moved down to grade 17, and everyone from grade 1 to grade 17 is at the $12.80. And you can see how it staggers out based on years of experience with, starting from grade 14 through 17, where it's a little bit staggered where minimum wage is at. It's not hard to picture where you're going to be on January 1st with a $13.90 and it dropping all the way down to grade 20, being consumed by minimum wage and the requirements of minimum wage through Prop 206. Now, to put that in a little bit of perspective, sometimes it's easy to think, well, this is happening everywhere. Let's first look at a national perspective. Arizona in 2016 was below average on minimum wage at the $8.05 mark. Currently, Arizona sits at $12.80. That is number 6 in the nation. On January 1st, when we jump to $13.90, we will pass New Jersey and New York, and we will only be behind Connecticut, Massachusetts, and California in regards to how high our minimum wage is here in Arizona. This excludes the District of Columbia that's running a similar system to Arizona, and they're currently at $16.10 for their minimum wage. So since they're not a state, I had them excluded. But what you see is that California, yes, is still sitting on top. They have minimum wage at $15 for any employer that has 26 or more employees. If you're a smaller employer, then minimum wage is at $14. But outside of that, there aren't very many states left for us to pass on minimum wage. When you look at who's above the federal requirements for minimum wage, you have 24 states that are above the federal requirement for minimum wage, ranging between $8.50 and $12.50 for those other 24 states. You have 13 states that adopt the federal minimum wage as their state minimum wage, and so that's $7.25. You have 5 states that have none, so for FLSA purposes, the Fed minimum wage will apply at the $7.25. And you actually have 2 states who adopted a lower wage than the federal minimum wage, so they're at $5.15. And for those 2 states, again, when FLSA rules apply, they do have to pay $7.25. But right now you have 2 states adopting at $5.15 when we're at $12.80. So how does that cascade? So based on data from Zippia, what you can see back in November of 2021 is the cost of everything goes up in those states that have high minimum wage. So to get a Big Mac in most of these states, you're looking north of $5. So California, $5.11, $5.23 in New York, $5.19 in Jersey. In November, a Big Mac in Arizona was $4.43. I'm pretty sure it's up a little bit more since then. Most of the states are below $4. A lot of the states are at $3, just slightly above $3 to get a Big Mac. That's just to give you comparative purposes that when minimum wage is going up, the cost of everything is also going up with it. When you look at the district's enrollment, so this is the district's historical enrollment going from 2015-16 based on the district's demographic report and looking all the way through 2025-26. And you see that not only has the district been trending downward since the same point in time in 2016, but the district is also projected to continue trending downward based on your demographer's report. So several thousand ADM have already been lost, and you're still projected to lose over 1,000 ADM more in the very near future. This actually impacts all of your employees, and so again, while it's very visible when you look at the placement schedule for your support staff, it's very visible to look at that and see the impact on the support staff and the compression. It's very visible right there, but it's actually impacting all of your employee groups. And when you look at the things that have been put into place, you have Prop 206 that's forcing up the bottom of the scale for support staff. You have 20 by 2020. Which forced efforts to make greater efforts towards increasing salaries for teachers. You have Classroom Site Fund that originally was dedicated for teachers, has been opened up for some support staff. The district is dealing with declining enrollment. So you have very limited, and a lot of your resources are also dedicated. It's not just limited resources, but you have some dedicated resources. Now, with some of the recent efforts that have been out there in terms of raising salary, there's one employee group that's been missing from all of this. You don't see any activity that's forcing you to actually increase your admin salary during this time frame. This is where the district ranks. So it is although you can't see the other colors, this is color-coded based on the district's ranking within the peer group. It's split by third. So green would be the top third, yellow would be the middle third, and then red is the bottom third. When it comes to support staff, regardless of years of experience or level of education, the district is ranking in the bottom third. When it comes to certified, there is one spot of yellow on there, a bachelor's with 10 years. Happens to be a little niche where the district gets into the middle third, but outside of that, the district is also in the bottom third on certified staff. When it comes to admin, this is a very odd niche, but at the master's plus 30 for 6 years, I typically don't see a color pop change in the middle of the grid. It's usually corners, but master's plus 30 at 6 years, just because of the way the other salary schedules are working out, the district actually gets into the middle third right there, going after a master's plus 30 with 6 years for admin. Everything else is in the bottom third. When we look at support staff and you're looking at the peer group and how they're handling minimum wage, when you get to Alhambra, they have $12.80 also as their minimum wage for their employees. They have eliminated all the grade levels that were below grade level 24, so 1 through 23 are now no longer on their salary placement sheet, and they've reclassed a lot of positions to get them above the minimum wage mark, but they do start at $12.80 and move up from there. Cartwright, this last year has been frozen, but they were above the minimum wage mark, so they weren't forced to make a move. They were at $13.20. They stayed at $13.20 and left their schedule there. Kyrene has made a significant increase. So Kyrene has done an increase of 2% plus $2.65, so a combination of both a flat dollar and a percentage increase. That's brought their the minimum wage now in Kyrene is at $15.06. In Litchfield, you see a similar move. Litchfield, I actually did the compensation study for Litchfield. They're phase one. They're doing their phase two now. Their goal was to be more competitive by position. So they did targeted increases. It wasn't a flat across the board. It was targeted increases by position based on where they were comparatively for that specific position. So it varied between $2 and $4.71, but the lowest position they have right now is at $15. Pendergast made a similar move to Alhambra. They did some reclass, and they brought up the lower grades only. They did not do any increases on the higher grades on their support staff. Just the lower grades saw increases to try to eliminate some of the compression that was going on at the lower end. Tempe, eliminate and reclass to get above level 32, so everything from 1 to 31 is now off their schedule, and they just start with 32, and that starts at 1280. Washington, everything was frozen except for food services. They're having a very difficult time employing for food services, so they made increases for food services, but everything else they kept frozen. They kept it to 1280. And Yuma did a $1 increase except for at the bottom where they just brought them up to the 1280 mark. When you look around the surrounding community, Culver's is advertising that they will pay a 15-year-old $15 to come flip burgers. Taco Bell, you have to be 16, but you'll still get $15. And at Panda, you'll get $16 as a 16-year-old. We move on to teachers. Again, the district is at the bottom. But again, the district has some company here at the 40,000 mark with Pendergast. But you see the changes by year. So Alhambra moved their teacher salary schedule up by $880. Cartwright stayed frozen. Kyrene made a pretty significant increase. And yes, the change is on there because they actually do have change out to the penny on their salary placement schedules. Litchfield made a pretty decent increase on their teachers. And so you see that, Litchfield, Kyrene, and Tempe are at the top because Tempe also made a sizable jump with the 4,000. Pendergast moved up just enough to be able to get to that 40,000. Washington didn't make a change. Yuma, 45,700, and that was after increasing by 2,653. I am aware of activity taking place in some of these districts where there is some reconsiderations going on. So when I come back for a later update, anything that gets passed at subsequent board meetings from when this data was pulled will get updated into here. So there's a couple of districts I know they're calling for board meetings and they're reconsidering additional increases. Not included in any of these numbers are any stipends, anything that requires additional criteria. If it's a stipend that's automatically given, so let's say a car allowance that's automatically given to an entire employee group, that is included. But if it's a performance pay stipend that requires you to actually meet some performance measures in order to earn that additional pay, that's not included here with these numbers. On principals, Alhambra actually regressed their salary schedule. They had room to come down because they're at the top of the group at $102,000 for a starting principal with no years of experience and only a bachelor's degree. So they brought theirs down. Cartwright's at $95,000. They held steady. Kyrene increased theirs, and so now they're north of $90,000 on their principals. Litchfield only increased slightly at $81,000. Pendergast, $85,000 after going up $14,000. Tempe also in those mid-80s with the $83,000. Washington didn't make any changes, but they're already upper 80s at $88,000. And the biggest jump is Yuma. So Yuma got into a situation where with their admin, they were seeing significant compression. And again, that's why I say compression is an issue that impacts all three employee groups. And for Yuma, their biggest struggle was that none of the teachers wanted to work for a few more months and less pay to become an assistant principal. And so they couldn't fill the assistant principal and principal position. And so the only way that they could respond to that was to significantly increase their administrative positions. And so principal was at $74,000, and in 1 year they jumped that up to $85,800. That jump of $11,800 puts you guys down below last for this peer group, because if Yuma wouldn't have made such a significant jump, you guys would have at least been ahead of Yuma when they were at $74,000. But they jumped up by $11,800, and so now they're in mid-80s, and they're actually more competitive within the peer group. Looking at some of your other administrative positions, you see similar results. So this is director. You see very similar results with director in terms of how everyone made their changes for this past year. And again, you're looking at mostly mid-80s. Pendergast does run director lower than principal. Typically, you see director and principal very much aligned. Pendergast is running a lower salary schedule for their directors at the $75,000. So Pendergast would be below you guys on the director. On assistant superintendent, you see a couple of those that weren't filled in. They don't disclose on their website or even in their board minutes where they're going on some of these salary placement schedules. I've had follow-up conversations with Kyrene, so I can tell you that their entry level on executive director or assistant superintendent is $112,000, so I can't fill in that mark now. I'm still waiting to hear back from Pendergast. I'm expecting that they're going to be about 110. But this is what you see on the assistant superintendent. Cartwright, of course, leading the group at $150,000 for an assistant superintendent. Alhambra, a little ways behind at $130,000. And then you drop down to the mid 110s is where everyone else is at, and Glendale currently is at 103, significantly trailing the rest of the peer group. So what is the plan? I know that's a lot of bad news, and I apologize for that. I'm delivering the news. I couldn't make it for you. But looking
Thank you,
at
Jeremy. We like the Big Mac slide.
I try my best.
I'm going to get one on the way home if I have enough money. Use my app.
So looking at going forward, what is the plan? Obviously, you have a lot of significant issues that need to be addressed. And even though this was outside the scope of this engagement, I did want to throw out some suggestions just because you're not going to be able to solve this problem without money. So I know everyone says, money doesn't solve everything. Maybe not, but that is what it's going to take to solve this problem. So the first thing we have to talk about is increasing revenues for the district. And I've shared this with the superintendent and the cabinet. And, you have to look at some ideas like what you can do on property tax, going a little bit higher on property tax, bringing in additional revenues through property tax, possibly looking at the schools you've been forced to close and using those for revenue generation. Kyrene, for instance, had a 28-acre parcel. They just put under contract, 77 years, $100 million. You're going to have to start considering some of these types of options, so maybe not those specifically, but you are going to have to start considering some options on how you can generate additional revenue because the per pupil formula is just not going to cut it to get this problem solved. Then you're going to have to look at decreasing expenditures. So as the saying goes, you can have more people or you can pay your people more. That's going to have to be considered as well. Most of your costs are in staffing. To give like an example, let's say if I had a team of 5 and I'm paying each of them $100 and the average rate out there for the line of work I'm asking for, maybe I'm just asking them to help me come move something. If the average is 110, I might have 5 disgruntled people who are helping me at $100. If I cut back and I lose 1 staff member, now I have 4 that I can pay $125. That's a 25% increase for the 4 that stayed. And now I got them above market, and maybe 4 happy people will be more productive for me than 5 people who are upset. So that's just to give you like a comparative analysis of some of the ideas that the district's going to have to look at. And then you have to do something to address the enrollment issues. I know it's not completely within the district's control. If it was, you would have done this years ago. But more strategies on how you can address the enrollment concerns and try to get the enrollment, if nothing else, to just level off and stop declining. But again, all 3 of those areas were outside the scope of my engagement. I just wanted to share those because when I was looking at how I was going to bring you a plan on how to address the decompression, I was like, we're going to need money first. And so I talked to my good friend Mike, and I was like, Mike, we're going to have to talk about what is the district looking at to take care of bringing in some more money first before we can even take that first step. Now, once we get there, once Mike works some magic, not Mr. President Mike, but CFO Mike, then we got to talk about logistics. And so logistically speaking, when we're going to try to implement this plan, you're going to have to create new salary schedules. Obviously, the placement schedule, fixing the placement schedule will address recruitment, but if you don't also honor your existing employees, you're going to have a retention issue. And so when you create these new salary schedules, you're going to want those to also be used for recalculating existing staff, so that way you don't have new people coming into the district who are jumping over existing staff. So after the creation of the new salary schedules, you would want to place all existing staff onto those salary schedules. and then post those as your placement schedule. So I have a nice little tool. I help all the team with that. So the logistics piece will not be the issue. It's coming up with the money first is going to be the main issue. You're going to then have to look at a phased implementation. You're going to have to set priorities. Right now, really, you need at least $7.5, $8 million of ongoing revenue to fully address this. I don't expect that a district's going to come up with another $7.5, $8 million overnight. So there's going to have to be some priorities set in determining if you want to either partially address all employee groups at the same time and try to raise them equally. I've seen that with some of the district's historical data, where for the most part that's true. A large portion of your employees outside of those that were close to minimum wage and had to get increased by over 70%. A lot of your staff has moved up during this time frame by 21%. Teachers moved up by 28%. And bus drivers, obviously for the bus driver shortage, bus drivers have moved up 36% during this time period. So for the most part, I see that, the historical trend seems to be to try to lift everyone all at the same time. But depending on the amount of money coming in, that does, everybody can commiserate, but it's not necessarily enough to actually fully satisfy any of those employee groups. So you may want to determine that you want to fully address one employee group first, and then phase in by then moving on to the next employee group and then the next employee group. Once I have that direction, then I can build that all into the dashboard for the district and show you those calculations and build those salary schedules for you to show you how that can be accomplished. But it's the two pieces. First, determining more resources, and then determining the priorities. Those are the two main items that need to be worked out before we can move forward with some more of this work. So that is the next steps: determine the priorities, calculate the available resources. Then we can start creating some new salary schedules. We'll apply to the existing staff for retention, and then we'll update the salary placement charts on the website for recruitment. With that, though, I can take any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Member Bartel.
So because of Prop 206, we have that every year there's going to be a change in minimum wage? And I
Yes,
know you
Mr.
said
President,
DC
Member
was doing that?
Bartels. So every year what will happen with Prop 206 is that the CPI at the end of August is going to determine what the next year's minimum wage is. And so it's going to move by that percentage, and it also rounds to the nearest nickel. So right now, if it holds in August at the 8.5%, which it may decline slightly, because if you've noticed, gas prices have come down, inflation's kind of backed off a little bit, so August may come in lower than July, but if it holds at the July mark, then yes, we will be finding out in a couple of weeks here that minimum wage will go up to $13.90 next year. It will continue to go up every year until at some point new legislation or another initiative comes forward to change Prop 206.
Because if I heard you correctly, only Washington, D.C. has the same type of change?
Yes, Member Bartels, Mr. President. D.C. is running the same. It's not an exact mirror to ours, but it's the same type of a format where they're tying their inflationary increases to their minimum wage, and so they've already gotten up to $16.10. They lead the nation. But when you look at the states, we're number 6 with the states. We're about to jump to number 4. At some point, if Prop 206 isn't changed, more than likely we will catch California.
Mr. President, members of the board, if I may, Mr. Kai has referenced 1390. Back in July, when you approved the adopted budget, those initial calculations we had, I think, at $14.10. What he's also referring to about Prop 206, that goes on in perpetuity unless something changes. And so this issue will continue. I think we've shared this with you, is that compression will continue, and it gets worse as this issue does not get addressed.
Yes, and additionally, that's why you've seen a couple of districts who had the resources to do so have already moved their minimum wage up to $15 to compete with the fast food industry and also to get ahead of this so they don't have to keep doing mid-year increases for employees.
I just have to say, good luck to our new board member. Have fun.
I was almost going to miss you, Sarah. Almost.
Because this is not going to be fun.
No, I think we all knew that it was going to be bleak. I'm sure those of you out in the audience, having worked for the district and worked for any employee, you know your employer better than someone who shows up every couple of weeks. It's a rough pill to swallow, and like the great philosopher once said, you got to get rich or die trying. We just got to find a way that we can. I mean, there isn't any choice. I don't know what that solution is going to be, and I hope whether we can find a way to do it internally or if we need to bring in some outside help to give us some ideas on what we could do. I mean, something needs to be done because this is not a situation we can remain in because, we already heard earlier about our first year teacher experience. Well, that's not going to get any better. And then you start looking at the other parts of our school businesses that will start to fall apart. I mean, I know we're having issues inside the business office. There's issues in, transportation, getting bus traffic. Every facet of the district is starting to suffer. And we talked a lot when we talked about liquidated damages that we do this for the kiddos. Well, we got to have people to teach those kiddos and be able to provide services to those kiddos. So. And I hate using the word kiddos, and I dislike you for putting that in my head. But I guess that's got to be our direction to the administration. What can we do? What options are available to us? Because we're going to run out of time, and this is, since Prop 206 was a voter initiative, you can guarantee that will be there forever. It will never go away. I don't think the legislature has the power to overturn a voter initiative, and I think the only option is for another voter initiative, and to have more than half of the people in Arizona saying, no, I like minimum wage to stay where it is never going to happen.
And I know, that we have 3 empty schools now that I think is worth looking at to, possibly do something with to, bring some revenue in some way. Or we could turn it into a special school, just add the word academy to it, and I think you'll just get a bunch of people signing up.
Mr. President, members of the board, I think that when you look at some of the challenges, you look at the school closures, you look at just this issue itself, those are big challenges the district has ahead of us. And that's why a long-term plan is critical, and we can't deviate from that long-term plan because all these things will never come to fruition. I would also add, so that we understand the magnitude of the challenge, in 8 consecutive years, we lost 3,600 students. We're scheduled to lose another 1,000 or so over the next 3 years. Those challenges will continue, and so as we develop a plan or plans, we have to think long-term, and I just don't mean these issues will not get solved overnight. This will take several years to fully implement, and so we have to think the long game. That's the only way that we're going to have that financial solvency that is needed to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Berrigan. Mr. President, I do want to say to the audience, no one's going to die. We're going to be all right. We're going to get through this. It's very difficult. It is not a pretty picture. And we have, thank you so much, Jeremy, for your presentation. Long time coming, and we are glad that you took over and were able to get us this data. As you can see, it's every employee group across this district is impacted by this. And we will begin to look at what some of those options are. We clearly understand that we need to generate revenue. We understand the importance of marketing for our students. We do that, but at the same time, I'm going to go back to what we know. We know we have a declining birth rate, and we know that there is unaffordable housing here. And so those are things that are out of our control. I joke about it, but I really did try a baby campaign to get people in, to do whatever we can. We are the best district in Glendale. We have the best staff across all areas. We will continue to market the district. It's just hard when you're faced with declining birth rate and affordable housing in this area, that people don't choose to live in this area. Especially when you look at the average income we were talking about a little earlier. The households around here is about $16,000. We understand that, but we are committed to looking at this salary schedule for all employees and it has to be addressed. We can't continue at this rate. We understand that, and we are, as you said, we have empty schools, and it's really talking about what can we do to generate that revenue, and also look at what we need to do as far as increase in taxes as well.
Thank you for the information tonight. I'm going to go home and cry. But I have every confidence that we're going to look at everything, because the teachers and the educators we have here, the teachers and the educators that are watching, our kids are worth it. Our community is worth it. And I know that Mr. Berrigan and his team have probably already started thinking about what we can do. And we have to do something. And I'm just basically speechless. I don't even know what else to say. This is something we knew was coming. We were hoping it wasn't going to be here for another 5 years or so, if I'm correct. But it's here. And I look forward to some good information in the next couple of years.
I really like the presentation and how you said that you have to generate revenues first. And my first thought actually was, also in there you said, setting priorities, and that those are some good questions. And one of the things that I just thought of, I'm like, oh look, we have land that's not being utilized, and I thought, okay, well, I'm like, we're paying money to have our full day kindergarten, too, which, maybe, business can't be, what it was. But I know that things will be looked at and how to do it. And I know that had a conversation walking in here, that the preschool's doing, quite well, so, I think, that some of the changes have been good, but but I don't know if it's, I think it was Mr. Martinez said, maybe, you do bring someone in to, help generate ideas of how to bring in more revenues, because I don't feel like you can do business as usual. It's obvious that we can't.
Well, hopefully we don't have to break down to like slapping some luxury apartment stickers on 3 school sites and letting the millennials have to throw their money at us. So I look forward. I know we all do, and we know there's a lot of challenges ahead. So thank you very much, Mr. Kayyaz. Everything I expected and nothing I wanted. So
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Okay. After that light news, moving on to the action items. The 2022-23 School Facilities Board Capital Plan. Ms. Sagata-Jones.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this time I will turn over to Mr. Berrigan.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is an annual requirement. I believe it's due September 1st. It provides or requires the district to provide projected enrollment over the next 10 years. We've done that. You can see the document there. But what I really want to put or place some focus on is in this request, we are requesting the school facility board oversight to replace the 3 schools. That is Jack, Menzendick, and Smith. So we have made that formal request through this report. So please know that we are petitioning the state again for those replacement schools. Mr. President, members of the board, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I actually just have a question on what's on our board docs thing. There's a thing at the bottom of it that says motion and voting. Is that just a weird glitch right now?
It must be, because I don't see it on the motion.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, it looks like it's a copy and paste from
It's a copy
last
paste
week.
or something. Yeah.
I think we can ignore that.
Yeah.
Are there any questions regarding the School Facilities Board Capital Plan? Hearing none, accept a motion to approve the capital plan for FY23.
I'll make a motion to approve the capital plan for the 22-23 school year.
A second.
All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right, moving on to future meetings and events. What do we have coming up? Ms. Sagata-Jones.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, you can see the next meeting, September 8th, peer observers and phase retirement plan. And then the next September meeting was the special meeting where we'll look at strategic plan update and discussion, possible study session.
Any questions or any items the board member would like to see added on the future agenda? I assume the contract one we'll talk about in November, correct?
Yeah, October, November, we'll bring that back, sure.
Actually, I wanted to see if we could just, I don't know if we need to bring it on the agenda or change it, but the call to the public or ask people to, say their address. Can we bring that back so that we can tweak our agenda?
Mm-hmm.
I think is it on there, but I know there was a couple that didn't provide it.
Yeah, it's just,
well, I know that it's provided on the blue sheets, but
Right.
it's just kind of weird to come up there. Yeah.
it's a regulation, so we can just change that. Look at that.
All right. There's no other adjustments to future meetings and agenda. Moving on to the summary of current events. Ms. Sagata-Jones, please give us some good news.
Yes, thank you. The good news is your audience, we have our teachers and our support staff, our administrators, families are here. They've been working hard since the opening of school. Obviously we have challenges with teacher shortage and so support staff shortage. And they've been doing a wonderful job to make, the situation that we have, they're dealing with it. You hear that, the shortages everywhere and people understaffed and looking for positions, but it's important that we make sure that we are out there supporting everybody, and Ed Services has been out there doing that with our new teaching staff, as well as each of the departments are working with support staff to provide training for them as well. So we do appreciate everybody's hard work, and we're continuing to look for staff. A couple of things that we're proud of. Superintendent Hoffman was here. Last week she visited Jack School, and it was nice to have her here, and very much supporting education for us. Other things happening, Saturday, we have our Kohl's shopping trip, and that's where Kiwanis Partnership takes a number of students from each site to go school shopping, and so we're excited about that on Saturday, and their partnership is really important to us. Also, we have attended a TAG meeting. Dr. Peterson and Corvaya and I attended, and that's actually the traffic committee. We know that when we close schools, Challenger, for example, we can use Challenger. It changed the traffic, the number of students going to Challenger. We work with Glendale PD and making sure that we have safe routes. We also meet with them when we have any concerns about where we think we need to see crosswalks and those things. You did receive from me today a text message first thing this morning that we had, unfortunately, a student was hit in a crosswalk. And it was a hit and run. It wasn't not one of our students. It turned out to be an online Apollo student. And so we have Glendale PD out there looking to make sure they can help us enforce. I have to say that Glendale PD has been very responsive. And you know how chaotic it is if you're dropping your kids off and all the traffic that is there. So it's important that we work with Glendale PD and keep everyone safe. So that has been going on. Also, we did this week, or last week, I can't remember, the Biz-to-Biz partnership with the Chamber. And we went out to, share what we do at Glendale Elementary School District, as well as recruit for that, and shared our new information with them. So hopefully, just by the number of people that went through that, event, we'll get hopefully some employees come and we spread the word about needing teachers, volunteers, those types of things. So that's pretty much what we did. I do want to take this opportunity to let everybody know that Saturday is the National Just Because Day. And so do something nice just because. And I would ask you, do something nice to yourself or for yourself just because you're working very hard. And what we're going to be doing this year, we'll still have our Just Because Awards where we go out. We know last year that it was very popular to have the yard signs, and those are very popular. This year we're changing a little bit. We used to give cookies. We want to change it a little bit, so we work with our local businesses, which we like to partner with, and we work with Soretta's. So this year we've come out with, we took the GSD logo, and they made it into this wonderful piece of chocolate for us. So that will be shared with everybody. And we just want to, those little things are nice to do for all staff, and we want to continue to do those things for not only staff, but our students and our families as well. Other than that, that ends my report. Again, thank you to everyone that's here. Thank you to those that are listening in the work that you do every day. I know it's very disappointing to hear that. Please come back tomorrow. I know it's hard with the salaries. I looked at some of those and thinking, dang, they make much more than I do. Maybe I need to go there, but I'm not leaving. You know, I love what I do, and it's unfortunate and where we are, but we're going to work to make things better for everybody. You're an incredible group, and it's always my honor to serve as your superintendent. You do amazing things every day, and so please know that you are valued, and we will work to adjust this decompression that we have in this district. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Smith, do you have anything to share with us today?
I just want to thank administration for the reports that we actually had. They were actually quite good today. And I just want to, I guess, echo Ms. Scott-Jones about, thanking everyone for working here. And I know it's not for, obviously, the wages that you have, but it's because it's a great district. And I'm just grateful for all the little things, that our superintendent does for each of you to just show, that you are appreciated, and those just because things are great. So that's it.
And thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, I won't keep you too long. This is one of the longest meetings we've had in quite a while, so I'll hurry up and just say thank you to all of you. And I know that you're going through quite a few changes right now, most of you, so you are greatly appreciated. And just know that things hopefully will continue to get better. So have a great year.
All right, Ms. Bartels.
So I can go ditto, 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 right? But just a reminder, because just like the incident that happened this morning in the crosswalk, just driving around, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but there are a lot of people that are just not paying attention to basic driving instruction. So please, please, please be vigilant out there, not only for yourself, but for the kids.
All right, Ms. Pimentel.
Again, ditto, ditto, ditto. Happy belated birthday to Ms. Wilson. No, I'm doing it. Ms. Smith and Ms. Bartels. What a great birthday present to have this. Oh, and, okay, all three of them, except Mike and I. Happy birthday to everybody. Again, thank you for the information. Please, please, please have patience with us. We value you, and we want you to stay. And again, welcome to our new board member-elect, Hector Jaramillo, and congratulations to Mrs. Bartels as well. And let's make it a great 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. As bad as some of the news was this evening, I just want to keep in mind, out of all the places I've ever worked, I've never seen a study like that, especially one that paints you in such a bad light. Let me clarify there.
You're killing me, Small.
Let me clarify here. Okay, I'll say it. That sucked. But the fact that we are not hiding behind it, the fact that we are putting out there, and the fact that, hey, we know there's an issue. Here's the data that says there's an issue, and we will make the commitment to address that issue as much as we possibly can. it should say something for the people that are in charge of making those decisions here. So thank you all very much for putting that together for us. You know, whether it's it can't always be good news, but when it's bad news, we shouldn't shy away from it as well. And also, yes, I did hear about the kid in the crosswalk. I generally hope they're okay. There are a lot of people that just kind of blow through school zones. I know you've all seen them. And we think people have common driving sense. They don't. And we think your kids will always park and always cross in the crosswalk, and they don't. I mean, my daughter called me yesterday, and she just got her driver's license a couple months ago. She goes, I put unleaded gas in here, right? I'm like, oh, God, yes. Please stay away from the green hose. So we think that people know better, and they'll tell us kind of what they want us to hear. So please be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Second.
Second, aye.
She seconded. Aye.